Welcome, I'm the Rules Lawyer, and today I'll be going over how you kill things in 5e. Both the attack action and the cast a spell action are pretty common, and they get the job done, at least in combat. They were designed to work nice and pretty with the core rules, and are 90% of what you'll be doing once initiative is rolled. They both deserve a video on their own, but today I'll be going over the martial side of things, because I'm boring, mundane, and I don't care. Attacks as far as the system are concerned are not just everything that make your enemies go boom. They're very specific, at least according to 5e. A disintegrate spell might require a saving throw, but the guards are in the right to arrest you for attacking the shopkeeper. Attacks feature the attack roll, which many spells, effects, and class features can cause. When making an attack roll, you roll the die to see if you hit rather than having your enemies roll to resist the effects, although a saving throw may still be involved. If your roll meets or beats the enemy's armor class, then it's considered a hit, and I'm sure you can guess what happens next. Unlike most saves, there's very few instances where something interesting happens on a miss. Exceptions exist, but it's usually pretty cut and dry. All attacks are either ranged or melee. Conversely, all attacks are either spell attacks or weapon attacks. There's a total of 4 combinations of these properties, and any attack should have exactly one set. Spell attacks are a lot less common because, by their nature, they tend to come from spells, most of which require a saving throw instead. Meanwhile, the attack action almost exclusively lets you make weapon attacks, and is also the most common way to make one. If you take the attack action, you get to make a single attack with the weapon. It also allows for shoving and grappling, but those don't involve attack rolls, so yes, I'm going to gloss over them. Weapon attacks include more than just weapons, though, and are so encompassing that they even include natural weapons like claws and other physical attacks like unarmed strikes. Yes, they're not weapons, however, they are weapon attacks. It's a misleading name, but any attack that isn't inherently a spell-like attack is a weapon attack. Feats like Defensive Duelist and Heavy Armor Master come into play when against weapon attacks, so they help against dragons, claws, and bites just as much as they would save you from the wrath of a group of kobolds with knives. Meanwhile, a spell attack like Inflict Wounds would just ignore these completely. If you're in doubt on the weapon or spell status of an attack, read through it carefully, or in the case of a monster stat block, check through the attack itself. So if you take the attack action, you get to make an attack. If a creature provokes an opportunity attack, you get to make an attack. Do you have a cool bonus action that gives you a new attack? Cool, you get to make an attack. It's simple and easy to understand, and without cracking open the book, you can get the gist. At low levels, this stays simple. The most common complicated thing tends to happen in 2 places. The first is a monk's bonus action attack they get with martial arts, and the second is dual wielding, or as 5e decided to put it, to weapon fighting. With both of these, there are several restrictions that limit when you can use these bonus actions, but the important ones are that you need to take the attack action and you're somewhat limited in the weapons that you can use. This means that the cast a spell action in the case of Green Flame Blade or Booming Blade don't count, even if you make the weapon attack of the appropriate kind. To clarify, attacks in the attack action aren't interchangeable, which is a lot more important than you might think at first. One simply causes the other, like social pressure and anxiety. The second could exist without the first, but the first is the most likely cause. Let's go a little deeper into this iceberg, but keep the familiar territory. At level 5, most martial classes get extra attack, a class feature that modifies the attack action. I've seen a lot of new players see multiple attacks and assume that it means multiple actions, which isn't the case. The class feature simply lets you take 2 attacks, even more if you're a high-level fighter, if you take the attack action on your turn. On your turn! This specification is actually important. If you hold your action, you can take the attack action on another creature's turn, which wouldn't allow you to use multiple attacks because you no longer satisfy the secondary requirement. The fact that this exists could be for balance reasons, considering spells have limitations on when being held too, but it feels like baking a cake for yourself, but then your roommate comes back and you kinda have to share. Even though you know it's silly to want to eat a whole cake by yourself, you still can't help but feel disappointed in the end. Before you get extra attack, it's so much easier to save up your attack for cool plans and work with allies without feeling like you're throwing away half your action. But after extra attack, you're rewarded more for mindlessly bashing each turn, which is also what you'll be doing with your head against the wall whenever this comes up. In my own games, I simply just allow more liberal use of action holding because encouraging creativity for martial classes is something that should be strived for rather than ignored. Regarding opportunity attacks though, extra attack strangeness actually has no effect. Opportunity attacks and many other features don't specify that you make the attack action ever. They usually just say you get to make an attack if certain conditions are met. So even if your attack action gets buffed, you can still only make a single opportunity attack, or in the case of features like two-weapon fighting, you can still only ever make one offhand attack. For the most part, this is all you'll need to know regarding attacks, and most players in the hobby are probably aware of most of these rulings. But we can go into the more obscure, the downright devious parts of the rules. The dark underside of 5e DMs hate me. Let's have a look at monsters for a moment. When talking about monster stat blocks, you may consider that many of them have their own multi-attack action that lets them take multiple attacks. However, this isn't the same as the player class feature, extra attack. It doesn't work the same at all, as it's its own action that the creature can take that is, by the rules, unrelated. Because it doesn't fall under the same specifications, it lets you hold the action for another creature's turn to take multiple attacks with a reaction, something not even players can do by the rules normally. Many monsters can take the multi-attack action, but if they really wanted to, they could instead take the attack action, which only lets them use one of their various attacks in most cases. However, you can give the monsters the extra attack class feature. This might seem silly, but moon druids exist, which cause all of these rules to intermingle in some sort of attack-based chimera, and any player who tries this will be working on their sheet like they're some sort of state alchemist who can't afford to feed both their kid and pet or something. So, let's say you just finished watching Kung Fu Panda and decided to be a Moon Druid Monk multiclass, 5 levels in Monk and 2 in Druid, and you wild shape into a monkey to play your favorite character, yourself. First, if you take the creature's multi-attack action, you can't use your bonus attack from martial arts or even flurry of blows. You might think the issue is unarmed strikes are impossible because it's not in the stat block, but any creature can make an unarmed strike, even a snake, and they don't even have hands. The actual issue is that both monk features requires the attack action to be taken first, and the creature's multi-attack action isn't that. Alright, that's okay. You can still take the attack action and use extra attack, the class feature, to make 2 fist attacks. You can then flurry of blows. Yes, but you still can't use martial arts to make a bonus action attack because it requires an unarmed strike or monk weapon, and the fist attack on the ape stat sheet is not considered either by the rules. So you would just have to fall back on your normal unarmed strike attacks and base class extra attacks for anything to work, which might be for the best, because wild shape attacks don't add your proficiency bonus, so you'll probably be more accurate relying on unarmed strikes anyway. However, there are many forms moon druids can take, and taking the attack action with an extra attack feature also would let you take multiple attacks on a creature that wasn't balanced with this in mind. Some creatures, like the rhino, were given higher damage attacks to make up for the lack of multi-attack, and 2 attacks can lead to some pretty hefty damage. It's a large investment, and with a low 2-hit bonus, it's not broken or anything, but it does exist. To most players, these technicalities won't matter, but if your monk decides to channel their inner Ursine in order to properly bear arms, it does work, and there are complications you need to know about. They're niche, and while Gary Newfighter might still be confused in how many attacks he gets with extra attack, action surge, and two-weapon fighting, it's always important to keep in mind, fun is the most important factor when it comes to this game. Even if a monkey's fist attack doesn't count as an unarmed strike, allowing it to function as one or allowing it to be a monk weapon is pretty harmless, all things considered. The rules only exist to further the fun for the DM and players alike. So if you really want to play a monk key, just use a shifter, or reflavor a tabaxi, or find a homebrew race. Honestly, the best way is usually the most simple way, and this is anything but that. Tabaxi even have a climb speed, for heaven's sake. In conclusion, if you find yourself fighting origami monsters, a good way to pin them down is Attac. In conclusion, turn a monk into a pig and you'll have plenty of pork chops.